You may have seen my face on some of the videos. I'm the moderator for the Vasculitis Foundation's webinars. But more importantly, I'm a patient living with MPA vasculitis. So I'm very excited to have all of the great speakers with us today and have a great part in communicating information to each other. I just going to tell a quick story. I was here in 2011 when my doctor told me that there was a Vasculitis Foundation conference in the Friday Center. And I came here and I met somebody else that had my disease, and we became best friends and are referred to by my doctor, who I'll introduce in a minute, as Thelma and Louise, because we traveled together to our appointments. And I hope that you find a friendship like that today. If you haven't checked in at the registration desk, we would like you to do that. They have these name tags for you. And this is the first of 6 events across the United States. So you will see soon the announcements of regional conferences in other parts of the United States, so that if you know somebody that has vasculitis that lives somewhere else that might want to do this, that would be great if you told them about those as well. We'd like to say thank you to our sponsors today, Amgen and GSK. We really appreciate them helping us put this together for you. And very importantly, please set all cell phones to mute, so that we do not interrupt the speakers today. You should have all had a parking pass when you got your email, and that goes in the dash of your car. We just want to avoid any problems in your parking. So if you have a question with that, stop at the desk and they can help you with that. Speaking of the desk, any questions today, look for the people that have these name tags with a red ribbon that says staff. They can help you. Maybe. I promise. They're very good at helping. They can help you. A couple of announcements before I introduce some speakers is that there is a refreshment area. I think it's called Blueberry Hill. It's nice, little coffee, tea, things to eat, and the lunch will be served in the Trillium Room, and we'll let you know. Well, it's on your schedule. You'll be able to see. We'll also have afternoon refreshments, and my other very important job is to make sure you know that they have bathrooms here, and they are right near the registration desk. That's the easiest way that I could tell you that. Let's see. Okay, I think we will begin. I'm going to begin by introducing our first speaker, who's going to say a few words. Dr. Ronald Falk is a renowned nephrologist with over 30 years of clinical research experience. He co-founded the Glomerular Disease Collaborative Network, I always say that wrong, in 1985 for the advancement of kidney disease research, which connects nephrologists throughout the Southeast United States with the UNC School of Medicine. His research and clinical practice focus on characterizing the cell, tissue, and physiologic changes in the development of specific rheumatic kidney diseases, including ANCA, glomerulonephritis, and small vessel vasculitis. Dr. Falk is considered to be an expert in vasculitis and autoimmune kidney disease, and is the co-founder and co-director of the UNC Kidney Center. And he's my doctor, and I'm his favorite patient. Dr. Falk. You named us. I don't know.
So welcome to you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here on a lovely March day in the midst of ACC basketball. Congratulations to all the state. If you're a state fan, so what a fantastic game yesterday. Thank goodness UNC's there, and the school that shall not be named is not. That's a good thing. A sincere thanks for all of you being here. I have been parts of all types of patient support group meetings for literally years. I've been doing this for a long time. As a matter of fact, what is so important about the work we've been doing is we've learned from all of you over the course of time. We've learned from you. I hope you've learned from us. And I hope that is what the focus of today is, that we hear your experiences. We hear the troubles and joys that you've been through, and then we can share with you some things that we've learned. And I want to share that learning experience with you. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. It was in the 80s. It was in the mid 1980s that we actually first discovered myeloperoxidase ANCA, and then confirmed proteinase 3 ANCA, and began this whole conversation of ANCA-associated vasculitis. And then, quite frankly, learned that those two autoantibodies were actually causing the disease. That was in the early 1990s. But a tremendous part of what we've learned over the course of time has been from you. You as a body of humans that have informed our own research and our care. This has been a really mutually positive learning experience. We have followed on an organized basis about 1,300 patients. And over the course of these decades, and it has been decades, what has been so wonderful to see is that while the course of how patients did in the 90s and 2000s is happily in the past, and what we're experiencing now really comes from wonderful new drugs that are part of our lexicon, and a knowledge of how to use them. Part of me likes that song from Kenny Rogers, The Gambler. You have to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. This is if you like poker, and know when to walk away and when to run. And quite frankly, that's also true about the drugs that we use. You've got to have people who listen to you so that we know when to use our very potent drugs and when to no longer need them. So what do I mean by that? Right now, we have almost 1,000 patients that we're following prospectively, 990 something or so. And literally a third of you are in long-term remission off therapy. That's the promise. Long-term remission off therapy. I wouldn't have even thought of that concept in the 1990s, 2000s. It's been in the last 10, 15 years or so. That you have now restored your health. You've been able to do what you want to do off therapy. The question is how to get people who are currently on therapy to be able to have the least amount of medicines and come off of therapy altogether. That's the goal, people. That's what all of us are striving to do. So what we have learned from you, from patients, from yes, if you see us in clinic, we draw blood on you probably more than you possibly ever want us to draw blood on. And we'll show you and tell you what we're doing with that body of research. And you're going to hear from wonderful folks here in a moment about the kinds of work that inform you, inform things about you. Quite frankly, coming out of our laboratories is a drug that is the company that's sponsoring this. A drug that had some letters and numbers associated with it that was what you guys know now as Avacopan, a drug made by Amgen or marketed by Amgen. It's a drug that we're learning how to use. I'm telling you this from somebody who knows a lot about Avacopan in mice and would love to be able to extrapolate all that in humans. But yes, Avacopan is a new leaf, a new vine on the treatment paradigm. And all of us are learning how to use it. And we need to hear from you, if you're on it, how it works. So yes, this is a bilateral communication. What's also been fun of having been doing this for so long is we have lots of trainees all over the place. Some of whom are sitting over here, and some of whom are sitting right there. Elizabeth Brandt was part of our kidney learning process and was in our clinics for a long time, 4 years. And without further ado, Dr. Brandt, would you like to share some thoughts as well? How do you want to sit there? Do you want to come here? How do you want to go?
Yeah, we'll sit here.
There you go.
You can stand there and formal. Whatnot.
I get to look formal. So do you want to introduce Dr. Brandt?
I do.
I thought you would.
Dr. Brandt is also my doctor. Was. Dr. Brandt is a former Vasculitis Foundation Fellow and currently serves on its board of directors. She's an assistant professor of medicine at Dartmouth Health, and she sees patients as a nephrologist with extensive experience in treating vasculitis. Dr. Brandt brings a unique and powerful perspective to her practice as a patient with vasculitis. Would you two all like to talk before I bring up our keynote, or would you like to speak afterwards?
Up to you.
All right. Well, if it's all right, then I'll bring up our keynote and it'll give you time to think of all the things you want to talk about. So having introduced Dr. Brandt, let me introduce somebody else. I'm going to introduce Brandon Hudgins, and we serve together as Victory Over Vasculitis ambassadors for the Vasculitis Foundation. Brandon is a retired professional distance runner and the owner of High Point Athletic Club, a running club and coaching company located in High Point, North Carolina. He works with athletes of all ages and skill levels, from new runners to professional athletes in the High Point area and across the United States. Brandon was diagnosed with granulomatosis with polyangiitis, the most common form of vasculitis, 14 years ago at the age of 21. Is that right? That time?
That's correct.
His goal is to inspire people to continue to chase their dreams after being diagnosed with this rare disease. Welcome, Brandon, and I can tell you he's inspiring. That way he can talk about you too.
Yeah. I mean, like so many of us in this room, Dr. Fox had a large impact on my career. I'm, lucky to be up here sitting next to him. But I wanted to talk a little bit, to what Dr. Fox sort of alluded to, having been involved with this disease so long. The thing I would share with all of us is it's a privilege for us to all grow old. All of us, if you've been involved in this disease and even in just life, some of us don't make it out. But that is largely changing thanks to wonderful help from some wonderful physicians all over the country. I, as Kathy said, I was 21 years old when I was diagnosed. We are all here because we all share the family of diseases of vasculitis. Most of us raise your hand if you had heard of vasculitis before you got diagnosed. Anybody? So all of us immediately kind of are like, what is this? What are we doing? I don't know what this is going. I don't know what is going to happen. I don't know what to do. But you soon learn that you have an incurable disease. It's extremely rare and your life is getting ready to change. I get to stand up here because of modern medicine. When I was diagnosed, the stats were much different. The stats that were available to us to even read about were much different. I to talk a little bit about myself, which I'm forced to do today. This little guy in the ugly yellow and purple uniforms that my father made us wear. I was a young, skinny distance runner. I had dreamed of going to the Olympics, running in college, doing all those things that young athletes do. I was healthy. I was living a normal college life at the time. I was a junior at Winthrop University in my hometown of Rock Hill, South Carolina. I had 2 pretty good years of college. I'd been all conference. I had, was starting to knock on the doors. I sort of would always kind of like chip away at things. I was never immediately good at things, but I would sort of chip my way to it. And my freshman and sophomore years, I had sort of started chipping away at the goals I had set out to kind of accomplish when I was a young runner. And as all of us, egomaniacs do when we're athletes, we dream of the largest stage. And for my sport of track and field, that's the Olympics. For most of their athletes, that's the NFL, the NBA, MLB. But my junior year was supposed to go really well. It kind of went haywire. I started getting sick. I went from being able to be one of the best runners in our conference, one of probably the top 50 runners in the country, to literally running behind our women's team at practice. And not that we didn't have good women, but that's not where I belonged. And nobody had answers for me. And I just continued to get sicker and sicker. And by the winter of 2007, I couldn't breathe. I was getting wonderful things like this out of my face. That's a booger, in case those in the back can't see. That is a quarter beside it. And that is not my best work. If you've had GPA long enough, you've done much better than this. This is, unfortunately, I guess, when I got diagnosed early on, we just had flip phones. And so you didn't take pictures of everything. This was actually one taken later when I did have a smartphone. But yeah, so I slowly got sicker and sicker and sicker. And luckily, a wonderful team of doctors in my hometown diagnosed me, because I had gone from like kind of what you see here on the left is, this is me racing at my best pre-GPA to being stuck in a hospital bed and not really knowing what was next. I feel like there's got to be something else going on here. I remember getting tested for AIDS, for Lyme disease. My ENT at the time was convinced I had a drug problem, which at that time I was having a different drug problem because of all the drugs they were giving me, but I didn't have any sort of like recreational drug problem. And I just got sicker and sicker and sicker. And finally, April 23rd of 2008, I got a call. I use a flip phone because I got a call after hours from my doctor. This is 2008. This is long before patient portals, emails, everything else. I was sitting at a track meet. Of course, that's where I would be watching my younger sister race. And I saw that it was my doctor's offices. And this is about 6 or 6:30 at night. And this was very uncommon for them to call you at that hour. And when I answered the phone, I quickly learned it was not just one of my doctors, but 2 of my doctors they'd come together in one of their offices to call me. And they were basically like, "Are you sitting down? Because we have some news to deliver to you." And so I sat there in the bleachers while I watched my sister and her middle school track team run around and got delivered the news that I had what was at the time Wegener's granulomatosis, which is now, GPA, and they couldn't treat it. They were going to assemble a list of doctors that we would see with insurance and all that fun stuff, who could see me, where I could go. But things were not looking great because at that stage, I'd started to get kidney involvement and everything else, and they couldn't really figure out what to do, because I had an ENT and a pulmonologist, and they were doing everything they could. But luckily, they didn't give up on me, and they were able to figure out what it was. I went home that night, and because you don't have a smartphone to start Googling what is this, right? I go home that night, I pull up my laptop, I Google GPA. There's not a vasculitis webpage. There's not the Mayo Clinic. There's not Johns Hopkins. There's not all of the wonderful websites that we have now. They can give you loads of updated statistics. I believe I found a Wikipedia page or something that was pretty old. And I got some very, very outdated statistics that were alarming for a 21-year-old to read, which is at that time, which it was a severely outdated statistic, was 90% of patients 1 year after diagnosis were dead, which was left over from the late 80s. But I didn't read much further than that. And I just closed my laptop and just marinated on what is happening. I don't know. I have doctors. I think I'm dying. I don't know. This is not what a normal 21-year-old is supposed to deal with. They found Dr. Alan Brown, who was at the Medical University of South Carolina, who with my insurance and stuff that I had at the time was the doctor that had treated the most of it. And I think he had like 5 or 6 patients, and I went down to see him one day and didn't leave. I went to his office, they did some blood work, and he's like, you're in kidney failure basically, or right on the cusp of it. We need to admit you to the hospital right now. And so I spent some time down in the hospital down there with him and a team of doctors down there. Got me under control. This is a picture from one of my stints in the hospital with my father. Of course, you're just hanging out because you have nothing better to do. But I soon had a new coach. I was at this stage, I couldn't run, I couldn't walk, I couldn't exercise, I couldn't do any of the things that I really loved and wanted to do. But I finally had a team of people to help me, a plan to follow. And, that's been one thing I think that has benefited me as an athlete over the years. As a patient, is like, I just look at my doctors like they're my coach, and they have a program and I follow it. Just like all athletes, we sometimes look at our coach and be like, why this? Why now? But ultimately, you have 100% faith in those people because they're your team. This became my life. We've all had, if you've had vasculitis for any length of time, the pill sorters, trying to figure out what medications to take when, making sure that things don't get taken with each other, making sure that, you don't miss anything. Who here has missed prednisone by accident and gone through the lovely DTs of that? So heaven forbid you be in a flare, and like I was at times, you're sleeping 14, 16, 18 hours a day, and you're supposed to spread your medication out over 12 or 14 hours, and you don't know how to do that because you just want to sleep. So this is very vain, and I understand this. But on the left is a picture of me shortly after my doctors had been able to put me into remission. I'm about 30 to 45 pounds heavier. During that 1.5 to 2 weeks I spent in the hospital, I put on 15 pounds because of the amount of IV prednisone that they were giving me. I'd been in a bed the whole time. I didn't see myself. When I literally saw myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize who I was. The picture on the right was taken actually on July 4th of 2016 at a track workout that my dad was at before I left for the Olympic trials. So those pictures are separated by about 8 years. So how did I kind of get there? So we started off here on the left with medications and doctors and slowly being put back together. I developed a pill problem that was fun to get over. And I was in a lot of chronic pain, as a lot of us are, and dealing with the social stigma of having a rare disease around a bunch of college athletes and living with them and that being your life. I soon found myself kind of in a place I didn't know, in a place I didn't recognize. I'm grateful that I had running to sort of pull me out of all of that, because I was not the best patient when I was, you probably shouldn't have been going to parties on chemotherapy. In fact, I think they told us to wear masks. But those are a lot of the things that I was doing because that's the only way that I had to cope and deal with the disease that I was managing on a day-to-day basis. I did somehow my senior year of college manage to make straight A's for the first time in my entire life. I remember none of that senior year of college, but I was actually able to kind of put myself back together. And if you know anything about the NCAA, you get 4 years of eligibility. I had missed 2 of them, so I had 2 on the table. Appalachian State was kind enough to take a very sick, a very out of shape, very lost boy and give him an opportunity to not just go to college and extend his own education, but to get nursed back to health. And by December of 2010, I was back at it. And the picture there in the center is me winning a conference title at Clemson University with family and friends. My dad actually took that picture. I got to run through the finish line, see him, embrace him, hug him. So you think you're on your storybook, let's write a Disney movie track. But in classic vasculitis patient format, I came out on the other side of college a year from the Olympic trials in 2012, ready. I was 2 seconds short of achieving a qualifying time. And I was like, I've got to go for this. I got sick again, and it got bad. And I was as bad as I'd been since 2008. Luckily, I didn't have any kidney involvement in that time, but I spent the next 2 years trying to put my health back together. Anxiety and panic attacks showed up. Mental health counseling finally entered the picture, and I was able to start putting myself back together. I got a lovely tattoo that has turned into a conversation starter. That is my chest with "All Hope Is Gone" tattooed across it. As you saw from the previous slide, I unfortunately spend too much time with my shirt off and in public places. It's something that's sort of personal to me, to kind of allude to the, like, it's a pleasure to get old thing. What are we going to do? You know, I spent a tremendous amount of time early in my thing hoping that everything was going to get better, but it wouldn't always get better. So many patients have gotten sick and never gotten better. And so I was at a place, I got that tattooed on me. Now I have to answer questions at the gym or random group runs when I have my shirt off of why I have this seemingly dire and doom-filled statement across my chest. I should have put it in a different language or something probably, but it's there as a conversation starter, not one that I was always prepared to have at 7:30 in the morning in a parking lot. But I put myself back together with thanks to some friends. I couch surfed and in 2015, thanks to, and as I said, it's a privilege to get old. The guy in the white passed away soon after the picture on the just to the right of that was taken, which was me breaking 4 minutes in the mile at Meredith College, where my mother went actually, which made me the 448th person to do that. There's been less people to break the 4 minute mile than climb Mount Everest. So I was able to kind of start back getting things going. I was able to make the Olympic trials in 2016, which this picture here is taken from, and start living out my dream. But I tried again because I thought like, hey, like this is going to be my life now. I'm going to be a professional athlete. Finally at 28, I'm not going to be living on rice and beans and being poor because professional distance runners don't make money. As you see, a lot of other athletes had, well, you can't see totally in this picture, but a lot of other athletes had sponsorships. I had the Vasculitis Foundation. I got to race at the Olympic trials with their logo on my chest, which was a tremendous honor. That's when the Victory Over Vasculitis campaign started. And we got to start inspiring patients that your new normal can look like what you want it to. And in 2016, we started that program. And I get to say now that awareness campaign now has actual resources behind it. And we don't get to just like wave flags and say, hey, you can be your best. We now have materials that are like going to help you with that. And we have a breakout session later today if you'd like to hear more about it, but we've got 4 to 5 different categories that we can help you with. I get to actually use my education now, because not just working with runners like I do of all shapes and sizes, but I also get to help develop materials for this program. And so, you know, we've also brought in a lot of other wonderful people like Kathy, have people to help you with patient advocacy, with mental health, with nutrition, all of the things that we need as patients to make our new normals what we want. And so we can all achieve our victory over vasculitis, which for me, I used to think I couldn't think past, and I'd sat in Dr. Falk's office sort of asking too many times later in my career, like, what can we do to get me back running right now? And he's like, your kidneys are shutting down. We need to be doing this. We need to be worried about some other things first, but we can get back there. I didn't think about the rest of life, but now I get to do that, and I get to help people, and I get to give back, and that's what my victory over vasculitis looks like now. And so it's working with patients all over the country, all over the world, working with the athletes that I have in High Point Athletic. One of our pictures taken after a race recently. And me and my partner and my family get to, you know, get to celebrate getting old together. So if anybody ever has any questions, I'm pretty easy to find. We have a website. During all of this madness, I also wrote a book about some of my, I wrote in 2017, 2018. Keep in mind, I failed in high school, so I did the best I could. But I wrote a little bit about my journey as a patient. It's not a running book. It's sort of the lessons that I learned as a vasculitis patient as I sort of recklessly chased a childhood dream, but the book's up on Amazon if anybody cares to buy it. If I was more prepared, I would have brought some with me. But the speech coach that the so lovingly provided told me yesterday I should do that. So because I failed to mention that in any of our meetings. But if anybody would like to get it on Amazon and on Kindle and everything, but I'll be around later today if anybody wants to talk. We're going to let the actual people that impact our lives talk now. So